Okay, let's see. That should start bringing us live. And let me know if there's anything up with audio or video. I'm pretty excited about this stream, and it's going to be a little bit of a strange one. As you can see, the setup is different than it might usually be. You are seeing a spare OBS application up here. So this is what I'm usually dealing with when I stream. So OBS, great piece of software, can do so many things, so important for anyone wanting to get started streaming. And then that's, so let's see where to start. Hello, everyone. Say hi if you're in the chat. I'm curious to see. I imagine we'll have a few new faces just because I've been shouting about this a lot. So we will be looking at Membrane, live streaming, some live view, some general stuff about video on the web, I guess. And we'll see how far it takes us. But I do have a demo that you guys will get to see. So welcome aboard. Guess I'll just get started and let me know if there's anything up with audio or anything. As mentioned, the setup is a little bit unusual today. So up here we have OBS. Here's a normal browser. And here's my code editor and code project for this. So this is actually what might turn into my next website. But let's not dwell on it. Hey Jayesh, hey Brooklyn. So the reason I'm very excited about what just happened for Membrane is that partly due to my badgering on their Discord, and partly because they do want to reach out to people more and reach the community more. The Membrane folks reached out and was like, oh, but yeah, you've been asking for RTMP. We can probably solve that. Could you sort of verify that it's doing what you want and maybe be a little bit of a customer for it, even though because they don't have any customers that have needed it yet. That's why it hasn't been built. They're a consultancy. That's how it usually works. But they reached out, asked if we could collaborate a little bit on it, and then they essentially did all the work, and I get to play with it, which is perfect in my book. So when you're working with OBS, the way you get your stream off to YouTube, hey McBull, is over RTMP. Same for Twitch, same if you send it to Mux, same for essentially anyone. They want to receive RTMP, which is a media protocol, and I won't get into the history of them. There are essentially no good ones, no well-documented, entirely open ones, as far as I understand. And this Membrane implementation leans on FFmpeg, if I'm not mistaken, which is fairly normal. So we create video in OBS using H.264 for the video and AAC, so Apple Audio Codec, I think, for the audio part. We pack those into some kind of transport format, in this case something that is RTMP, that the RTMP protocol dictates, I believe. And we send that to the RTMP server, which repackages it for live streaming. Now, Membrane could do all the repackaging for live streaming already. So that's the adaptive, this one, the HTTP adaptive stream plugin. So it does HLS, which is HTTP live streaming. Now, HTTP livestream is only natively supported on iOS devices or Apple devices, so maybe Safari on Mac as well. But everyone can handle it via HLS.js or other video JavaScript thingies that play nice with the protocol. Essentially, you give them a playlist of these are segments of video and audio that you should be fetching and playing. And that allows you to just essentially serve live video over HTTP. We'll look a little bit closer at that. But essentially, you will have something like an index file in the M3U8 format that contains references to where the audio and video files are. That's the simplified version. Hey, Tom. So those can then be put on, for example, S3 and put behind a CDN for distribution, or you can serve them with any HTTP server. They're just files, and they keep adding more files and updating the index files so that you can always know what parts are available for download. So that's the basics of how HTTP live streaming works. And this plugin handles the creation of those parts, and it has a pluggable storage backend for either writing them to files or publishing them to somewhere else. So that's something that's a fairly flexible part. And this is the sort of ingest part, which means it opens a port and listens for RTMP. I think it's still in a fairly early state, but I've essentially copied this sample, modified it a little bit, and we will take a look at what I've set up. So this, actually, maybe let's crank the size a little bit and close that. Okay, so this is a fairly normal Phoenix project, 1.6 series. It has live view and all the fun stuff in there. But this is the live stream pipeline. So Membrane is a media framework meant to connect different stages together. I've done previous live streams where, for example, I told it to start listening on my local microphone, and then I took the signal of that and I turned it into, or I used an audio meter plugin that the Membrane folks have created to get the amplitudes of the microphones, so I could show levels live using live view. So that's an example of information that you could pull from one of these pipelines if you construct it to do that. This has a fairly simple pipeline in that we don't try to do a whole lot of things with it. So we use the Membrane pipeline behavior here, and that brings in a whole chunk of Membrane features. The handle init is your typical init kind of deal. In this case, we set up a path for storage. We make sure it exists. We even registered the process. We sort of treat it like a singleton in this case, and just call it live stream. Then we set up these children, and they're named. So there's an RTMP server, that's a bin. So let's see, there are source and there are sinks and there are bins. And bins are sort of substructures of pipeline. So there's more things inside of this that you could unpack into elements. We won't be doing that. I don't want to dive too deep in the RTMP server right now. But we set up that child. We set up the HLS. So the RTMP server will be listening to port 5000. The HLS sync bin, which a sync is something that receives things. A source is something that produces. Hey, Isaac. The manifest module, yeah, so this will probably be pluggable at some point when they start supporting, you can see here, Dash support planned. Dash is another live streaming format, but HLS is what we're doing now. I set the target window duration to infinity. That, as far as I understand it, that is how much do we keep in the index so that people can go back. It might have drawbacks, I'm not sure. Well, I guess we'll find out. Hopefully the Membrane folks will tell me, because they know much more about this stuff than I do. Max segment duration, I cranked that up a little bit just because it was seeming like it could be trouble. I tell it to persist the data. I tell it to use the file storage solution and put it in the path. Now, we've only defined these. We haven't set up any kind of flow. That's where the links come in. You want to link the RTMP server via its audio out. So any audio that comes out of the RTMP server will go via the input audio pad with the encoding AAC to the HLS element, so this sync bin here. The link for the RTMP servers via out video, this is the video output, that will go via to the input pad on the HLS element, and it will use the H.264 encoding. And we are already sending these encodings, so this is mostly talking about what it needs to be, I think. I don't know. I got this code sample from their repo, much like everyone else will. But then you take that, you turn it into a parent spec, and you return that, and that's a reusable piece of pipeline that you've defined. Or reusable is maybe the wrong term. We'll see. Oh, hey, Connor. Oh yeah, so disk space can definitely be a challenge with any video recording. And Infinity, yeah, that would use disk space, assuming you keep streaming. So if you want to keep a rolling window, I guess, yeah, then I don't know that that's exactly why that is the way it is, or why it was set the way it was. Because if you have persist true and you stop the pipeline, it should then add all of the video back into the index sort of after the fact. So I think this is just for when during a live stream you might not want people to be going back too much and try to keep a current window. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the goal of that option is. But for me, Infinity should be fine. While I do sometimes do long live streams, they are very rarely infinity long. Now, something I also do in this, which is not covered in their example, is that I handle a few notifications. So Membrane can tell you things with the power of message passing. So you get track playable, and we just keep track of those. And then if the count is equal or more than 2, we broadcast that the live stream has started. Now, the reason why we wait for 2 of them is because you get 1 for audio and 1 for video, because we have 2 different tracks. You can do HLS live streaming with audio only or video only if you really want to. And then for the end of stream, we similarly look for 2 of them before we send or broadcast using Phoenix PubSub an ended message. So that's a couple of notifications that we use. And this link, like the children and links, is where we could plug in more stuff. So if we wanted to fork the video or fork the audio, for example. You could T it, make a T junction, and just as a lagging sort of indicator, but ideally fairly quick, we could use the audiometer to measure levels, for example, and indicate those levels in the UI in parallel to whatever is going on with the video. Or pick up the latest thumbnails, we could cut those out. There are examples, there are a ton of examples of different approaches and different parts that you can do with Membrane. It's not entirely trivial, and if you don't know anything about sort of web video, it can be a little bit daunting, but I have never seen anything quite so approachable as Membrane is for video audio processing like this. So beyond this, and the consumer of these events is just a live view, just a regular old bog standard live view. Aren't we all bored of live views at this point? They are so nice. They're so useful. Hey, Ashtosh. So we have a live view. It takes a name. It sets up the local path and the path for finding the video index. So this is the index playlist. It checks if the index file is already there. It considers the live stream started. It subscribes to these events. It sets up some state. We have a live boolean, we have a started boolean, and then there's some stuff for changing the UI of the site, whether it's immersive and tag this video. Once we get the started event, we just toggle these booleans to true. If we get the ended, we toggle the live to false and keep started true. Here's the render. So we render out a video element. There's a Phoenix live view hook for hooking in HLS.js. I'm using their basic example, just modified to work with live view. We pass that the path for finding the index file. We give it some controls, we give it some styling. If things are live, we make sure there's a text saying live on the page. If we're not live yet, we show a please hold message. So let's actually look at it. So we can go and just go for, let's see, live foo5. Foo5 has not been created, it does not exist. And right now I don't have a sort of backend for starting live streams or anything. I use IEX for that right now. This is not so featureful. I think I've spent around 4 or 5 hours playing with this functionality since I got the okay from Software Mansion to like, oh, here's the RTMP implementation, have fun. So these are my utility functions for both starting the pipeline and making it play. So I go live, foo5. That should start. So now it's ready to receive RTMP. As you can see, nothing happened on this view. Ashtosh, the difference between use and import. Import brings in a bunch of functions, while use can do whatever the creator of the behavior you're using or the module you're using feels like, because it does macros. So nothing is happening. Now, if we hit start streaming in OBS, we can see unexpected stream, blah, blah, blah. There's some messages. I think they're supposed to be there. But it passes a few messages, and then, oh, yes, we should probably click play. The unexpected stream, blah, make sure this is muted. And we can see that I actually added this Unix time thing because sometimes I sit very still. and it helps also get a hunch of what the delay is. So it's about 20 seconds right now. And I bet if I spoke to them, they could tell me a few different ways to tune that. So yeah, right now we are having a live stream. You can see it count. And yeah, my computer is not falling over. I've been curious about this because this is double streaming and a lot of moving parts, but it seems to be working. And as you can see there, it even says that it's live in the corner here. I was trying to make that pink, but that's been the hard part. I haven't solved that problem yet. It's a tailwind thing. So this is using from OBS to Elixir, and then everything else is essentially in Elixir. And then there's some JavaScript for doing HLS, which is unavoidable. You absolutely cannot, unless you only want to target Apple users. So yeah, now it's live streaming. I could set this up on a server with some fiddling and send data to it and have people look at it. I'm using the static file sharing in Elixir from the endpoint, just print static to provide these parts. We can actually take a look at what it's doing behind the scenes, I think. Oh yeah. So you can see it's refetched audio M3U8. It's fetching the so these M3U8 video and audio is where it's refetching the index and looking for these headers and segments. Then it fetches headers and segments to keep playing. So that's what's happening in the network side of things. We are providing, so Membrane is writing new files continuously and updating those index files. The index files are a brief chunk of text, and the video files are much heavier. You can see they're around 3 megs. So yeah, that's what's happening behind the scenes. Now, if I stop the streaming, you can see that it stopped being live. It keeps playing because we're probably not entirely caught up with the recording. Seems like we're 3 minutes behind, so I think we've been lagging behind a fair bit, which is something there are a few things about sort of latency and timing I would like to dig into. I don't think I'm getting the full story when I'm working locally on my own machine either. I tried it with a server and it seemed to work okay, but I didn't have a good way of shipping the files over. It was a very hacked together solution. So I was shipping them to an S3 compatible bucket somewhere. So that one. Now, if I refresh this, we can still go there and look at whatever's there. And I think they're supposed to be we can tell this to go dead, to shut down and clean up. So we should close the port and all of that. And let's see if we actually got, yeah, the entire live stream is there. And I should note, just for the sake of the Membrane folks, this is a very early version of RTMP support. It seems to be working great as far as I've pushed it. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are slight issues, and it's in an early state. We agreed to call it a technical preview, and I think that's fair. The hex package is not, last time I checked, the hex package wasn't right. And I'm running off of GitHub deps. See, and you have to have the adaptive stream plugin from GitHub, and you have the RTMP from GitHub. And in recent membranes, you need to override telemetry because I think there's just a slightly too strict version requirement somewhere. But yeah, that's essentially what you need to do to live stream and to live stream with Elixir. Questions are very, very welcome. There's some more stuff we could play with. So this live view, and one of the reasons I set up live view is to be able to do stuff like, oh, the live stream hasn't started yet. Let the user know when it does. And at that point, start looking for the index files and that kind of thing. Because we have all that information, because the live streaming is happening in the same system as the web UI, and we don't have to do anything advanced to communicate between them. We just pass the messages, which is very easy in our runtime. Now, something I would like to add, so if I'm going to switch to this long term, that's sort of my plan. I mean, I don't love YouTube as a platform, and I like watching YouTube, but typically I'm planning on trying to run this myself mostly. And then I would probably want to implement chat, because I still want to hear from you guys. Hey Nick, welcome aboard. And to be able to have chat, like live view is fairly well suited for implementing chat. So that's something I want to add. I want to see if I can add more neat sort of live and semi-live features. That could be cool. So some of that would mean hooking into this chain, doing more processing. So we can take a brief look at what I did for the audiometer. One thing I really like about Elixir projects is once you've written something once, it's often very easy to just airlift it into a new project. I keep referencing my Noted project for things I do at work, because like, it's just, how does a live view work again? How do you write one from scratch? How did I set up this Webpack config thing? Once you've done it once, make sure you have it in a repo when you can use it again. So this was the audiometer port audio source, so that's cross-platform audio library that they've coupled to Elixir, and you can use it as a source to get audio. You get it raw, the audiometer, peak meter, and you measure it at an interval. Then we had a fake sync, just essentially we threw out the audio after that. And then we get notifications about the amplitudes for the different channels. Broadcast those, a live view picks it up, live view updates and displays. That was what we did. I believe this audiometer is sort of limited in what formats it can take. I think it requires a raw format. I think I want the GitHub one, but could be wrong. Actually, let's check the docs. So input. So these are caps. This is sort of how Membrane tells you whether something is compatible with something else. It's a raw audio stream with interlead channels. That's a caps audio raw. And we don't have raw audio. What we have is AAC. So let's see, Membrane AAC audio. So capabilities for this. Not sure how to wield this particular thing, but let's see. Actually, let's see which module we have, because I think there's been a few different ones through the ages. We can check what the RTMP plugin requires. So this one uses the Membrane AAC plugin. So let's see, API reference, element fills in gaps, parser. Okay, so let's look at the parser. Supports both plain and ADTS encapsulate output configured by out, blah, blah. Hey, Steven. Glad you like it. Input with encapsulation none is supported, but correct AAC caps need to be supplied with the stream. So, input, availability caps, any demand unit, output. Okay. Input any, output. Oh, right. So this one turns essentially the binary, I imagine, the incoming audio and turns it into Membrane AAC. So I wonder if there's a neat way we could, let's see, Membrane AAC decoder. I think there might be one. A C decoder and encoder based on the FDK library. So this would probably allow us, so they do from a file source, it takes an input of the wave file, uses the wave parser, uses the wave encoder, or use the AAC encoder to output AAC. So we could use the this makes me think we could use the decoder to produce raw, hopefully. This is like everything to having to do with audio and video at this sort of granular level, or any level, gets a little bit involved. I've never seen simpler than this. Oh, welcome, Membrane Framework. Nice to see you in chat. All right, so yeah, here's an example. So we could do, given some AAC, we could decode it, and we could convert it with the software resample converter, and that would turn it into raw. And if we have raw, we know that the audiometer, that's a hard word for me, the audiometer can handle raw. And doing that, we could get those levels. I'm not sure we're going to manage to do all of that in this one. There's another example. Let's see. Membrane, thumbnail, T. No. Video. Let's add some words. Case study via this one. This is a good case study thing. Pretty good read overall, but this is, so each stream should have a thumbnail displayed next to the stream link preview. It should be taken from the stream itself. So this explains some of how they do that. They have a receiver. They put the AAC here. They tee the video. H.264 scissors. Now we're talking. So they tee it between the parser and the scissors. And we have a similar situation. So here we could do scissors before we pass it on to HLS. Just like what they're doing here. And we could have it on the side, sort of shipping off like chopping off thumbnails from the stream. Brooklyn, that's a good note. Yeah, I don't know where you even start for picking up audio and video. So I definitely did a fair bit of transcoding video. That was probably where I started with web and video. So just making sure that, oh, this is the right encoding and this is the right encoding, and they're in a package that the browsers can accept, and making sure that any video like that a user sent in was transcoded, something we could display on a web page. That was where I started with that. And so, fundamentals of video. So most video, what we see here, I believe the RTMP server sends the video and audio packaged into FLV, so the Flash video format. That's a good old staple of how we do video on the internet. But essentially, any video is usually in a container format. So MP4, for example, is something you've probably seen floating around on the internet. That's a container format. Inside that is something. It can be essentially anything. Very common is H.264, which is a video encoding. So that's a way of making the pictures into a nice tidy line without wasting a bunch of space and compressing it well. And then the audio is a separate stream of either MP3 or AAC. AAC is probably the most common, along with H.264. H.265 is getting more common. So that's the separate audio stream, and that's in a particular format. And when I typically record my streams, I record those to .mkv, which, much like MP4s, are just a container format. I save it in H.264 and AAC because that minimizes how much transcoding I need to do to put it on a website. But that's essentially it. You always have a package format, and you have the actual raw video and audio formats. And what you get out of a microphone when you're talking into it and it goes into your computer is raw audio signal. That has to be packaged to usefully be used in software. Or rather, if you want to send it somewhere, a .wav file, which is uncompressed, can get huge. And even worse with video, raw video is typically immense and very rarely used in day-to-day. So you always tend to package it up to a useful file size. The MP3 is probably the canonical example that made audio feasible at all. And the streaming part, any streaming means fetching pieces piece by piece and showing them, or doing something with them. And this is no different. So we keep that index, we keep that index playlist that tells you where to find the audio and where to find the video. And then you have the video index file, which tells you where to find all the pieces of video, when we keep updating that one when we add pieces. And that's what the HLS part is. So the HLS format, or streaming protocol, I guess, that builds on those index files and those pieces of media file. So if we look in the folder where we did the Foo 5 stream here, actually, we can see that there are a ton of files here. Video segments and with nice file names. So we have this index here, we have the audio index, and down here we there's the video index, and the video index looks like this. We can have the sidebar. So this is the playlist format that was typically used for MP3s. This is like the Winamp days. Still how we do playlists today. And it just has a bunch of information about the video segments and headers. That's it. And that's how the browser can find out where to fetch the next piece of video and just throw it into the player so it can be displayed to you. But that's about as much as I think I can cover of fundamentals, especially off the top of my head. So, element for cutting off parts of the stream. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole to fall into for sure. So we have all these options for what to do with the stream. I'm most curious about the parsing and decoding AAC. But I'm hesitant about whether we will succeed, because there's a lot of fidgeting to just get things quite right when you do this. But let's see if we can get somewhere with it. First things first, we need to make sure that we have the required libraries. If you have more questions about what I showed in the sort of demo thing, we can dive into that further as well. It's quite available for us. Let's just see if we have that. Now we do. And I don't know if this is the best plugin Membrane has provided for AAC. I think there are a few different ones, because AAC has had many different plugins and packages over time. We can see that it pulled in Caps Audio Raw, for example, here. Let's see, I have this media. Let's see. We don't need a port audio plugin. We probably need a resample. We'll see. I don't know if the audiometer has been recently updated, so let's make sure we grab the latest one. But now we're in the unprepared part of our show. We'll see how this goes. So this is my reference for getting this to work. And let's revisit. Where was it? There. Now, we will also need to tee off the audio, unless we want to so unless we want to just eat the audio. I mean, we could just eat it and not send it to HLS, but then it would never go live because it wouldn't receive the second track. I'm glad it was helpful, Brooklyn. You never know. Explaining things is hard, especially when you're improvising, but I do like trying. All right, where was I? T plugin, Membrane framework. Element T. So I think the reason why it's called T, both in, so I think this is called T because of this. Read from stand input and write to stand output and files, which means you're splitting an input. And I think that's called T because it's a T junction. So it goes in 2 different directions. Very cool. So this has a few different ways of running, where one is entirely in parallel and one is master. And the master one is what I think is probably wisest, because that would mean, so there's a master and a copy in that case. So the copy one isn't as so that would mean our audiometer would never block processing of our audio longer than it takes to split off, at least. So it wouldn't wait for both of those processing pipelines to be in sync, because we don't need them to be. The audiometer is not as important as the live stream audio. So processing time is a big factor in anything doing with live media. So yeah, we have the audiometer, we have the T. Let's see, membrane core, it requires 0.5. I don't know if it's going to be compatible. I have no idea. And I will not blame them if it's not. But I'm going to rock on. So membrane has a lot of elements and a lot of parts, and some are used more often than others. So for entirely reasonable reasons, I think it's hard to keep them entirely up to date with each other. I think they will have to figure out a way of doing that eventually. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted them to stop working on the RTMP to make sure that the scissors thing absolutely was up to date with it. I'd rather see the progress. Do I have the fake element? I don't think I do. Probably want the fake element, because I think that's a good place to put your data when you're not doing anything with it, to make sure it goes away. Let's see, element fake. Yeah, so I don't think I had much luck last time. I was trying to T some elements, so we'll see how it goes. So this describes a T. We don't need files, so let's just go here. You can hear people sweating in Poland. Like, what's he doing now? We haven't tried this. It's okay. It's okay. I know we haven't tried this, but we have to live a little. I've been very happy with the RTMP plugin. It's behaved quite well. So we add the T. And let's see, we should add one of those fake syncs, which is what I did for this one. Audio sync. Yeah, so let's alias. No, we can bring in both of these. Sync the buffers. So This is gonna be a heck of a tree to see if we can get working though, because here comes the AAC. So here, via audio, via out audio, via in pad ref input audio. I think we want to tee it just before this. Let's see. T. So via out, we want to see. So we want to shove it to T. This is actually pretty good because I think we will be able to just try teeing it straight into the fake sync and nothing should happen essentially, but we will be splitting off the audio and throwing it into the dump, into the trash, which will give us one step of iteration before we try to add decoding and audiometering, because these are potentially quite complex steps. So this is a list, and I keep forgetting that it is. It looks so much like a pipeline. So the T should via out master. Keep doing that. So this should mean that the master feed of the T just passes through and ideally doesn't really change how things work. And then via out copy, we should be able to do to audio sync. And I think that should just throw away that data. Super curious if this is gonna work. Let's see, we got a warning. Membrane times second is deprecated, use second 0 or second instead. Found the 2 locations. That doesn't seem important. Compilation error, syntax error before link. Yeah, forgot the commas. As I said, this is a list. I keep forgetting. It started. So this means that if we do Underjord.go live foo6, it's ready to listen. We can go here. Oh, now we're repeating the demo. That's a nice teachable moment, I'm sure. And we should be getting the notifications. It's ready to go. We didn't break it. Doesn't seem like we broke it. Nice teachable moment, I'm sure. Seems to be working fine. Stop streaming. I'm quite surprised that we didn't screw anything up. That's nice. So let's shut that stream down entirely and get ready for foo7, which will, not 77, come on. I will say, when playing around with this and making sure it worked for this stream, I did get up to foo, I think 18, just trying different things and playing around with live view. Okay, so we have teed it out. Let's see if we can decode something. I have about 5 minutes, then I'm heading out to dinner, so. File source, that's not what we're doing, but let's add the, did I add the software resample thing? I think I'm gonna need that. Actually, can we? Oh no, this was created with an older version of Hex, so I can't jump to code. Damn it. That's otherwise how I navigate the world. Finding my code via Hex, because Hex is better SEO than GitHub apparently. Better docs. Okay, so this one. Failed to load latest commit information, that's nice. Sometimes there's a newer version than what's listed. So pay attention, be mindful. That seemed fairly recent. That's not the one. That's not the one. That's the one. So we want to add the AAC, decoder, and the converter. And let me know in the chat if you've done things like this with video and feel like this would have helped you. I know this would have helped me at different times. Thankfully, I haven't needed to do much with live video. Otherwise, I would have been so screwed without this. So I know that the audiometer is particular about what caps it accepts. We can adjust if we have to. We have this capability in the converter. So this would mean we take the source and we link it to that, we link to that. So we could just add these two and then shove it down the sink. That still works. Next step would be audiometer. I'm coming so up on time, but I will not cut it short quite yet. Because I'm a little bit excited to see if this works. So that's ready, and we hit start streaming. We got some warnings here from Membrane. That could be fine or it could be a problem. I don't know. Oh, it's too much of them. Terminating element possibly not prepared for terminations. It wasn't state playing shutdown parent crash. Yeah, okay, so we run into an issue. Not sure what the issue was. If I was logging more carefully, I would have been able to capture it, probably. But some part of the pipeline tree did not like what we were doing right now. And OBS has noted that it's having issues connecting. So, and if we try to kill this one, I bet it's already dead. Already gone. Nice. We found the breaking point. That's good. It was going a little bit too well. And I do need to wrap up anyway. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about just what we have even without all of this. So if we skip the T, so this is what we had. Let's yank that. Then we can just comment all of this out. That one goes to HLS, that one goes to HLS, and restart this. Let's go to foo8. Let's make it all the way to foo8. I got a warning. Terminal. Did I not restart it? So one of the challenges with stuff like this is that there might be things hanging around that aren't working right. So what we can also do is make sure we comment these out because we're not using them. Now we should not be having any code that doesn't do what we want. Let's start foo8. Yeah, no more warnings. That's nice. We start streaming. And there it is, starting back up again. We start streaming. I do have to press play, and there are ways to work. And there it is. Not around it entirely, because you need user input to be able to autoplay a video or to be allowed to play a video. But we could probably make it nicer. I bet we could, but I haven't spent time on it. And that's enough for my face for now. Oh, actually, I can change the scene. But I haven't spent time on it. I only have one in my face. So this code is not openly available yet. I think I will eventually make most of my... So the idea is to have this live streaming built into my website. And I do want to make most of my website tooling open and available. I don't care if anyone copies that. That's not what my website is. What makes my website special is not the markup or the code. But I need to figure out how I would slice that. And sort of the annoying part is I have my logo and everything in there. But I should put out these examples. So these snippets and examples. I'll see what shape that should be done in. I actually think I have someone that can help me get that done. All right, so that about wraps it up. We've done live streaming in Elixir, and we've done live streaming on a live stream, which I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but it feels like it worked out. All right. It's fun to see that a bunch of people could join as well. I think the later time helped. Maybe not my energy, but it helped people attend. Okay, I think that's it for now. Now, have a good weekend, everyone. And don't hesitate to reach out and let me know what you think, or if there's anything you're curious about. I'm happy to do more things related to this. And a big thank you to the Membrane team and Software Mansion for putting serious time into making sure we have this plugin, which is just another step in making Elixir oh so very good for live things. All right, looking forward to playing more with this. Have a good weekend. Take care.